June 13th, 2022 started as a regular day at SeaWorld Orlando. The sun was shining brightly, crowds buzzed with joy, and the cetaceans performed their usual routines. But within seconds, everything changed. A 2.5-ton orca attacked her trainer. This wasn't a random accident. It was a warning that had been ignored for too long. The consequences sent shockwaves through the world of animal care and raised chilling questions about the dangers even seasoned professionals face. This is the terrifying story of the final moments in the life of Carmen Vázquez. Before we continue, welcome to Wild Encounters, where we share the most gripping and unforgettable stories of human-animal interaction. If you're fascinated by intense wildlife encounters and survival stories, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. It helps us preserve these powerful narratives. Not long before the headlines and bloodied waters, she was simply Carmen Vázquez, a 27-year-old woman radiating ambition, intelligence, and vitality. Born in Seville, Andalusia, Carmen had been fascinated with marine life since childhood. She collected miniature cetacean models and by age 10, knew every known orca species by heart. She didn't seek fame, only to help the creatures she loved. Carmen studied marine science at Complutense University in Madrid, graduating with honors. During her studies, she interned at small aquariums, cleaning tanks and doing behind-the-scenes work just to be near dolphins and sea lions. Professors described her as introverted, focused, and brave. After 3 attempts, she was finally accepted into the SeaWorld Orlando Trainer Program in 2017. Carmen stood out immediately. While most newcomers washed walls and sorted fish, she demonstrated an innate understanding of animals. From day one, she observed more than she spoke, reading each orca's body language like a unique code only she could interpret. She began with the basics: cleaning, feeding, medical monitoring, and training from behind a barrier or dry platform. These were crucial steps to build trust and assess trainability. But Carmen didn't just follow the rules, she made the animals feel safe. Veteran trainers noticed that orcas lingered near her longer, responded faster, and even showed joy when she approached the pool. It was especially true with Billy, a 19-year-old orca weighing over 2.5 tons. Billy was a reliable show performer, but unpredictable off-stage. She'd shown signs of irritation during checkups and once refused to return on cue, delaying an entire session. Some trainers avoided her. Carmen didn't. By the end of 2019, just 2 years into her career, Carmen was granted full clearance to work directly with Billy, in and out of the water. This was an exceptional privilege, usually reserved for trainers with 5 or more years of experience. The bond between Carmen and Billy was undeniable. Colleagues later described it as watching sisters communicate silently. Carmen could raise her hand and Billy would instantly react. She could stroke Billy's head and whisper, transforming the massive predator into a calm, compliant being. In a 2021 SeaWorld documentary, Carmen smiled at the camera and said, "Billy's not aggressive. She's sensitive. You just need to respect her space and feel her energy. She speaks if you're willing to listen." She described Billy as calm, perceptive, and misunderstood by the outside world. Together, they were a model of trust and empathy, man and beast in harmony. Visitors often said their interactions were the highlight of the entire park. But behind the beauty was a reality all SeaWorld trainers quietly accepted. These animals remain wild, volatile, and potentially deadly. There is a line every trainer walks between connection and control, routine and risk, affection and danger. And on June 13th, 2022, that line was crossed. Billy was born on March 12, 2007, at SeaWorld Orlando. Her mother, Coral, was born in captivity and known for her temperamental behavior. Her father, Sebastian, was infamously linked to the deaths of 3 people, including trainer Paloma Ruiz in 2010. From birth, Billy symbolized SeaWorld's captive breeding program, part of the effort to replace wild capture with in-house births. She never saw the open ocean or swam with a true pod. Her life was confined to concrete tanks, choreographed shows, and human contact. As a calf, she was described as playful and curious. But with age, trainers noticed mood changes, longer periods of unresponsiveness, sudden aggression, and refusal to follow familiar commands. Some whispered she'd inherited her mother's instability and her father's darkness. Still, she remained a show favorite, often in the spotlight. Behind the scenes, she was monitored more closely than other orcas. And on that June night, all her behavioral red flags suddenly mattered. The session was supposed to be a routine dental checkup. Nothing dramatic or dangerous, just technical maintenance, cleaning, inspection, and trust reinforcement. Carmen stood at the edge of the medical pool, leaning slightly forward to examine Billy's mouth. Billy was trained to rest her chin calmly on the platform and open her mouth wide on cue. But that night, something felt off. According to SeaWorld's internal records, Billy showed subtle signs of agitation, increased reaction times, resistance to holding position, shallow breathing patterns. Behavior specialists noted she was off her baseline, but deemed it safe to continue. Carmen gave the usual hand signal. Billy opened her mouth. Carmen leaned in just inches, still within the safety zone. Then, in a flash, everything changed. Billy's jaws snapped shut around Carmen's right arm. This wasn't a gentle nibble or playful mouthing. It was a bone-crushing grip. 5 tons of pressure slammed tissue to bone. The cracking of her radius and ulna was immediate. Her wrist shattered like glass. The horrifying sound echoed across the arena walls. At first, there was no thrashing, just deadly silence as the predator held firm. Carmen screamed. Staff on the platform rushed toward her. Radios flared. Emergency alarms blared. Someone triggered the Stage 1 response, sending underwater signals for Billy to release and retreat. Billy remained still, then finally let go. Carmen collapsed backward onto the platform, clutching her mangled arm. Blood pooled on the slick black surface. Her face twisted in agony. Trainers rushed in with towels, batons, and adrenaline. Paramedics began emergency procedures, CPR, defibrillation, oxygen, but it was too late. Time of death was recorded later that night. The coroner's reports confirmed what many feared. Carmen died from a combination of massive internal trauma, blunt force injuries, and drowning. Her spine had likely broken during a second submersion. Her lungs were filled with water. Her jaw was dislocated, consistent with a violent blow, likely from Billy's snout or tail. The damage was catastrophic. Even a few seconds earlier wouldn't have saved her. SeaWorld staff openly wept backstage. Many had started their careers with Carmen. Now her lifeless body was wheeled out under white sheets and flashing red lights. The show was over, but the aftermath was just beginning. Visitors learned about the incident only at dawn the next day. For nearly 24 hours, SeaWorld Orlando remained completely silent, canceling all Orca shows that day and citing technical issues with the park's audio systems. Inside the facility, operations were halted. Trainers were sent home and security was placed around the pool. But rumors had already begun to spread. Guests had noticed ambulances. Some even recorded videos capturing the chaos, sirens, alarm signals, and suddenly, blank screens. Something had gone terribly wrong. At sunrise on June 14, 2022, SeaWorld officials finally released a statement. A somber press conference was held at the entrance of the park. Journalists gathered in the damp weather as cameras rolled. A spokesperson stepped up to the podium, surrounded by senior park officials in formal attire and SeaWorld-branded shirts. Carmen Vázquez was a valued member of the SeaWorld family. We are deeply saddened by this unimaginable loss. Carmen died during a routine training session. She passed doing what she loved, working with the animals she cared for with all her heart. The details of the attack were not disclosed. Billy's name wasn't mentioned. The words were carefully chosen, full of sorrow, yet restrained. To some, it sounded like sympathy. To others, like damage control. Behind the scenes, trainers were in shock. Some took sick leave. Others allegedly refused to return to the Orca pools. An internal directive banned all staff from speaking to the media under any circumstances. Outside the complex, backlash erupted immediately. Social media exploded with outrage. Animal rights advocates, already critical of SeaWorld's practices, began circulating photos of Carmen alongside tragic precedents and disturbing images of captive orcas. Hashtags like Justice for Carmen and hashtag Free Billy quickly trended. Another trainer had died. Critics accused the company of a cover-up, of prioritizing profits over safety, of repeating the same mistakes that led to Paloma Ruiz's death over a decade earlier. The press conference, meant to bring closure, instead reopened old wounds. Public scrutiny had only just begun. Following Carmen Vázquez's death, SeaWorld's silence didn't last. Within days, the U.S. Occupational Safety and Health Administration, OSHA, got involved. A formal investigation was launched into the events of June 13, 2022, focusing on training procedures, safety protocols, and the management of known risks in working with orcas at SeaWorld Orlando. Inspectors visited the facility multiple times in the following week. They interviewed staff, reviewed internal records, analyzed behavioral logs on Billy, and checked surveillance footage over the pool. What they found was deeply disturbing. According to internal documents, Carmen had expressed concerns about Billy's behavior in the weeks leading up to the incident, including several occasions where the orca refused to follow commands, ignored desensitization signals, and even once snapped her jaws toward a trainer's limb during feeding. Despite these warning signs, Carmen was scheduled for a close contact session, the session that would be her last. Several months later, OSHA released its findings. The conclusion was direct and damning. The employer did not furnish a place of employment free from recognized hazards that were causing or likely to cause death or serious physical harm to employees working with captive orcas in close proximity. It was a chilling echo of OSHA's 2010 case following Paloma Ruiz's death, one that temporarily banned water work with orcas at SeaWorld. But clearly, not all lessons had been learned. As a result of the investigation, SeaWorld was issued a serious violation under the General Duty Clause of labor law, meant to protect workers from foreseeable hazards. Then came the number that stunned the public: $16,550. That was the proposed fine for the death of a 29-year-old woman with a shattered spine, water-filled lungs, and a grieving family left behind. For a corporation generating hundreds of millions in annual revenue, it felt like pocket change. Critics called it a slap on the wrist. Animal rights groups described it as state-sanctioned negligence. Former SeaWorld employees began speaking out, claiming it was just another example of a system that puts profits above people. The case was closed, the fine paid. But for those who knew Carmen, those who were in that pool, the damage went far deeper than any written penalty could cover. In the days following the tragedy, SeaWorld went quiet. There were no public memorials, no suspension of shows beyond the initial closure. But behind the headlines, a quieter grief was unfolding. Carmen Vázquez's family held a private memorial near her hometown of Córdoba, Spain. The ceremony was modest, no press, no spectacle. Just the people who knew and loved her before the spotlight, before the concrete tanks, before the roaring applause of the arena. Dozens of current and former trainers attended the memorial. Many wore black SeaWorld shirts with no name tags. Some brought flowers, others photos. All carried the heavy knowledge of what it means to enter the water with a predator that can never be truly tamed. There was no music, no clapping, only silence, and the soft whisper of wind through the trees as a life cut short was honored. Later, Carmen's mother gave a televised interview. Her voice was firm, but her eyes were hollow. She loved those creatures more than anything, she said. But she also believed in protection, in trust, in her team. SeaWorld failed her. And now we will never see her smile again. Never hear her laugh after a show. Never get her back. The clip aired nationwide, repeated in evening newscasts, and circulated widely online with one message: this should never have happened. In the following months, Billy was removed from all public performances. The Orca who once led the shows now remained hidden behind sliding doors and filtration curtains. Trainers no longer entered the water with her. Visitors no longer heard her name during daily presentations. Officially, there was no update on her condition. But rumors circulated. Some staff claimed Billy had grown withdrawn, floating lifelessly for hours, or isolating herself in corners of her tank. Others said she began swimming in circles for hours, often at the exact time Carmen used to greet her, as if still waiting for the signal, for the familiar voice calling her name. No one knows what the future holds for Billy. But one thing is clear. Something changed that day, not just in the water, but in the hearts of everyone who witnessed what happened. Carmen Vázquez became the latest name in a tragic legacy written in bruises, broken trust, and concrete enclosures. A legacy that once again forced the world to ask the same question: how many more? Carmen wasn't just a trainer. She was a daughter, a mentor, a friend. A woman trying to make the world better, not just for herself, but for the beings she loved with all her heart. She dedicated her life to understanding orcas, to building a bond rooted in trust and performance, and paid the ultimate price. But Carmen's death wasn't just a tragedy, it was a warning. Because these animals aren't amusement park attractions. They're not gentle giants or performers in costume. They're wild predators, creatures of instinct, power, and intellect. And when they're locked in steel tanks under artificial light, cut off from their natural rhythms, that power doesn't vanish, it builds. Until one day, it explodes. Carmen's story joins a long chain of loss, broken lives, grieving families, and unanswered questions. How many more warnings will it take? How many more smiles must vanish beneath the surface before we finally say enough? Because silence protects no one, and together, we might finally turn tragedy into change.